weather, but I'm glad that you can be here with us today because, of course, everything that you do is essential to bringing this about. And
that's my job.
To make this work. Again, I'm just the moderator for today and a happy participant. And today we have with us Mary Ann Johnson, who's the program director at the Greater Richmond Alzheimer's Association. We are delighted to have her. I think this is going to be an excellent session, and y'all are going to get a lot out of it. Let me remind you, if you have colleagues who are interested in this topic, they'll be able to go back and view the archived version after today's session. And my job will be to, again, we'll come back and do questions, and I'll help facilitate that when the time comes. And then Nika will tell us if there are any other upcoming things that we want to be aware of. Okay? Mary Ann, are you ready?
I am.
I'm excited. Let's hear what you have to say.
Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody. It's exciting to have this many people on the call. And just to start, you know, we talk about partnering with your physician, and when you go to the physician, you have about 8 minutes that you have his undivided attention, or her undivided attention. Think back, and did you ever have a bad doctor's visit? I think probably each one of us could recall a time when it wasn't the most pleasant of visits, and we didn't get all our questions answered. I can remember taking my mother to the doctor to try to get a diagnosis for dementia, and the physician looked at her, gave her the mini-mental state exam, and said, well, it looks like she's okay to me. She's just getting older, which was not a good answer. So I requested a lot of asking him if he had done a lot of tests, and he actually performed the test and then dismissed her as a patient. So sometimes we have physicians that don't really like the way we approach things. And so what we want to do today is talk about how do we partner with our physician to get the most and the best medical care for our loved ones. At the end of this webinar, you'll be able to explain the meaning and purpose of a healthcare partnership. You'll be able to put into action 8 strategies that strengthen a healthcare partnership, and you'll use the care medication and appointment logs. I want you to remember that when we talk about being a partner, we're not just talking about the relationship that we as the care partner have with the physician. We're also talking about including the patient. On your screen, you'll see a model of a triangle where they begin to connect every member of the partnership. We often tend to think if someone has dementia, we can leave them out and we can be their communicators, which is important, but we still need to explain. We still need to help them understand as best they can what's happening when they visit the physician to make that the best partnership there can be. When we talk about strategies for successful partners, we're going to look at an acronym, and we're going to break this down. We're talking about planning for the visit, asking for a diagnosis, reporting recent or sudden changes and other concerns, talking to the doctor about your role in the partnership, naming your community resources, engaging in the partnership to make sure you understand, restating and agreeing on a plan, and then schedule your next visit. So as we break those down, I want you to think, too, about your physician. You know, we think they can fix everything. We put them on a pedestal. We expect them to give us all of the answers, and we don't do our homework. And when we don't get our answers, then we become upset. Well, let's talk about how we can change this whole partnership. The first strategy of planning for the visit. You know, I talked about doing your homework. In this slide, you see the 3 terms, care log, medication log, and appointment log. How often have you ever been to the physician, they walk in the door and say, and you can just have the worst case of flu ever, and he says, how are you? And you respond, I'm fine. That's our automatic response. And, you know, if he asks you, how long has this been going on? Oh, I don't know, maybe a month, 2 months. Well, that's not really helping the physician. So when we talk about a care log, and we're going to look at one, we're going to talk about what you would put in this. The next one is the medication log, and remembering all of our medications as we get older, and as I approach that older age, I realize how many more I take. That medication log is important because it does help the physician. You know, that's one of our keys to knowing how to provide the best treatment. And then the appointment log. So let's look at these individually. In your care log, you're going to write down changes in memory and ability. Now remember, we're talking about taking someone who has a dementia disease, a disease that's causing cognitive impairment. It's a struggle to take care of them in many cases. It's stressful to try to get them to the physician, and if you've had to wait in the waiting room for longer than 5 minutes, and for their term you've been waiting for hours, you forget really what your concerns were. But if you write these down, because knowing that your appointments are probably 3 to 6 months apart, if you begin to write these down, then you don't have to remember. So it's going to help you with not having to stress out over what you're supposed to tell the physician. So changes in memory ability. It's important that the physician know these things. I beg your pardon? Does someone have a question? Drastic mood changes. You know, these can happen.
Si se coge el teléfono, puede oír lo que están diciendo hasta que llegue el screen, y si lo quiere ver aquí, está acá.
Sir, if we can ask you to mute your line until the presentation is over. Just press mute on your telephone, please.
I'm really sorry.
No problem.
Okay, then we have drastic mood changes, and some of these can be part of the disease, and some of them may need medical evaluation. So everything that occurs with this person is important. And as a primary care partner, you know this person best. So you're going to know when those changes occur. You're going to know about the unusual behaviors. Writing them down will help you remember them. Health-related changes, changes in sleep, changes in their appetite. Are they eating more than they normally eat? Are they not eating at all? What is their skin appearance? Is it dry? Is it beginning to be very loose, or is it beginning to tear easily? Their hair, is it dry and brittle? These things sound like things that happen as we age, and they are, but they can be compounded by a dementia disease. And then health complaints of the patient. What has the patient been complaining about? You know, we don't always, we don't always realize what the patient is telling us, and sometimes they can complain about one spot on their body, and it really is another issue. This is a sample of a care log and the kinds of things that you would write in it. Notice we have the name of the person at the top of the page. And you say, well, why do I need that? Because I'm the one caring for them. Because you're going to share this information with the physician. So it's going to be important to have that information on there. You want the date, the time that the issue, that the behavior changed. In this case, John fell asleep in his chair while watching television, and when I tried to wake him up, after an hour he became angry, pushed me away, and he slept for 3 hours. So he's sleeping during the day. Well, at 2 o'clock in the morning, the very next morning, he had a hard time sleeping. He was getting up, he was pacing the floor for 2 hours, and when the attempt was made to get him back to bed, he started to cry and seemed angry. Now, maybe you say, well, because he slept all day, he's not sleeping at night. But you know that's a change in behavior that needs to be reported to the physician. Any sudden changes in mood, behavior, or anything about this person need to be reported to the physician. In our medication log, we're going to record our prescription medications, our over-the-counter products. We don't often think about over-the-counter products, vitamins, herbal supplements being something we would report to the doctor. But each one of those things could have an impact on what is prescribed for the person. So we write those down. We write the dosages. How much are they taking? What are the side effects? You know, when you get a prescription filled, you get a long, involved, these are the side effects course, you need a magnifying glass to read them, but it's important to know what those side effects are. They're going to be the general side effects that most people show. But your loved one is not most people. Your loved one is your loved one, and so you need to know what they're doing differently after they start a new medication. What are the special instructions for giving these medications? So in our sample log, we see that, again, we have the name at the top. We have the prescribing physician, the name of the medication, the dosage, the date we started, what it was given for, what are the main side effects that you may see, and then how do you give it. Now, when you have all this written down in front of you, you're not having to get your glasses out to read the bottle to figure out when do I give this, or how much am I supposed to give, or do I give it before the meal or after the meal. You don't have to figure that all out. It's all right here. It's important to have the physician's name, because if you have more than one physician, they need to know what the other doctor prescribed and what it was for. The other thing that's listed here is allergies and current medical conditions and things and foods that you want to avoid because they may have another side effect that this person is reacting to. When you start with a new physician, you remember that, and probably periodically, you have to fill out a health sheet. Well, the health sheet may have all this information on it, but the physician probably would have to look through a lot of papers to find it. This medication log gives it to him right up front. He doesn't have to search for it. It helps him, and it saves him time, or her time. In the appointment log, we're going to write the date and the time of your next appointment, your 3 biggest concerns, and any questions that you have for the doctor. Now, again, you can do this every day, once a week, however you choose to do this, so that the physician, so that you're not having to remember everything that happens between their visits to the physician. On your appointment log, you can see that it has the date that you're going to the physician, the time, the name of the patient, the name of the doctor, and your 3 concerns. So my concern for John Smith is that he's wandering at night, he's sleeping during the day, and it seems that he just has too many pills to take. Well, so your concern is that he may be taking more medication, he may be over-medicated, and that's why he's doing this. So the doctor looks at it, and he writes back on your appointment log, he may not be sleeping because he's sleeping during the day, and he's not getting enough daytime exercise or daytime stimulation. So the doctor is going to give you some things to do, and if those things don't work, then he may prescribe a sleeping pill. Now, we want to avoid the pharmacological approach before we try some other things before we go that route. So we talk about Safe Return Program, which is a program from the Alzheimer's Association that puts identification on the individual in case he wanders away. It's a minimal amount of information. It puts their name and a registration number and an 800 number. No one can take advantage of that person, but they will know how to connect them back to their loved one. That's important if someone tends to wander, and 60% of these folks who have dementia diseases will wander. So now you write down, the physician has written down what he wants you to do. No caffeine afternoon, daytime exercise, enroll in a day program, enroll in Safe Return. You can see the things that he is talking about, putting him on a regular schedule, and at the very bottom of the page, you've written the next time and date of the appointment. Now, we talk about all 3 of these logs. We've listed 3 logs that you're going to use, and as a care partner, you're saying, well, how am I supposed to keep up with that? I have enough to do. Well, one suggestion is we send it to you electronically so you can just type it into your computer, or you can actually make copies of a log, write it down, put it in a notebook. How are you going to get it to the physician? Well, you can drop it off with the physician several days before the appointment. You can email it to him. You can mail it to him. You can hand it to the nurse the day that you go, and now let them put this in the front of the file so that the physician is not having to talk about the person in front of them. As all of you know, the social skills of these folks are still there, so if the physician says, "Are you having trouble sleeping at night?" the person is probably going to say, "No, not at all." And you're there saying, "Well, they didn't sleep at all at night." That begins to create an argument because you're going to contradict what that person has said. This way, the doctor has the questions, and you don't have to say them in front of him. The next strategy is asking for a diagnosis. Oftentimes, we don't do that. We assume we hear what the physician says, and if the physician is unclear, I used the example yesterday with a group, and I said, they say, well, it could be the flu, it could be a cold, or you could be dying, and you only have 3 months to live. What do you hear the physician say? Because now you're already shocked. So you think you only have 3 months to live. That's not what the physician said. If you know what the doctor said and you know the diagnosis, then you can research it. You can find out what your resources are. You can know a possible progression of that disease. And you can know some things that you need to plan for so that you're not blindsided by a disease that you're sitting there saying, I have no idea what this is causing or why this person is acting this way. It's important to get that diagnosis to learn how to communicate, to learn how to care and give the best quality care to your loved one, and hopefully keep the stress down. The third strategy is reporting recent and sudden changes and other concerns. Any sudden change needs medical evaluation. And you check everything. I often tell people about my mother that she had the change in behavior. We couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. I kept telling my sister to take her to the doctor to see if she had a urinary tract infection. She didn't. We found out 6 months later that she had an abscess tooth so bad that it was in the bone of her, in her jawbone, and she lost all of her teeth. We couldn't pinpoint what was going on. So if you have a sudden change, it needs to be checked from all angles. It does indicate a medical issue, and that medical issue could be as well the decline of the disease. Talk to the doctor about your role in the partnership. Tell them who you are. You're the primary care partner. You're the medical health care power of attorney. You're really trying to make this doctor's visit so that it makes it easier for the physician, and it makes it easier for the person you're bringing, and it makes it easier for you. And you're going to be using these logs. Now, this asks the physician how they would like to receive the information. Would they like for you to email it? Would they like for you to bring it the day you come so that it can be put in the front of the file? Do they want you to mail it ahead of time and then have time to answer the questions? We expect physicians to give us instant answers. They can't always do that. So let's sort of give them a break on this and do our homework as well. What are your community resources? We get diagnosis of diseases and we think we're alone. Well, you're not. There are a lot of resources in your community that can help. The Alzheimer's Association is there if you get a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or any related dementia disease. We have information and referral. We have a helpline that you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There will always be a person on that phone. You can ask for information on the disease. You can ask for emotional support, or you can get emotional support. And if you call at night, you'll get someone at our national organization. They, in turn, will email the local chapter that you have called, and the local chapter will call you back to give you local resources. We have websites that you can check. Those websites are a wealth of information. They have information about the disease. They have information about programs that are being offered, information about support groups. Each chapter has a newsletter, which again provides some information that you can really hold in your hand and read about caregiver issues. Alzheimer's associations do care consultations. We work with families to try to help them plan, to try and help them understand what they need to plan for. so that there is a proactive approach, not a reactive approach. We provide education for care partners and community organizations. We train professionals. We have support groups throughout the chapter areas. We have the Safe Return program, which I talked about earlier, which is the bracelet that you register your loved one. We also suggest that the care partner get a bracelet as well, because if something happens to you, it connects you back to the person you're caring for. There's an 800 number that you can call. As I said, it's answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Or you can find your local chapter by typing into the website alz.org/apps/findus.asp. And it will help you find your local chapter. You also have area agencies on aging with information access services and access services, community-based services, in-home services, housing, elder rights. There's an elder care locator at the National Area Agency on Aging locator website, or you can call them. It will help you. The area agencies on aging, again, provide a wealth of information and services that are often not taken advantage of. I know our local area agency on aging even has a group who will assist you with filling out Medicaid forms and also help you with they have some volunteers that will help you with your taxes. The Virginia-based resources are also the Virginia Department for the Aging. You see on your screen the website and the toll-free number. If you can't find assistance or something in your locality in the Commonwealth of Virginia, if you call that 800 number, it will connect you to them and they can point you in the right direction. And Senior Navigator is another useful tool that will help you with finding not only information about the disease, it will also assist you in finding facilities, in-home care agencies, and a wealth of other information. They even have an Ask the Expert feature that you can ask a question that you want answered, and you will get an expert in the field of the question that you're trying to receive information on. The sixth strategy is to engage in the partnership to make sure you understand. Know what the physician is going to expect you to do. Remember how he has asked you to submit that information. Make sure that you're understanding what information is going to be helpful for him. I will tell you if the physician does not want you to email it, and he does not want to be able to have to answer it and mail it back to you, if he really doesn't have the time or to do that, you can say, well, I will sit there with a pad of paper and I'll take notes, but please allow me to repeat those notes back to you to make sure I have it straight. And that does a couple of things. Number one, it reassures you that you've got the right information. It reassures the physician you've heard what he says. And it's also reassured the person who's in the room with you that you're both in this partnership together, that person is not being excluded from what the physician says. The seventh strategy, restate and agree on a plan. Why do we say this so many times? Because it's important for everyone to understand what their role is and what information they're going to provide. And then schedule your next visit. How often do we go to the physician and we forget to take our calendars? We make an appointment for 3 months. We get out to the car. We look at our calendar. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't go on that date. So then that involves a series of phone calls to try to reschedule the appointment. Take your calendar with you so that you can schedule that next visit. It's going to save you time because it's going to save you a phone call of trying to leave your name on the answering machine or not getting a person. So you'll be able to do that instantly. And then you can record that in your calendar so that you don't schedule anything else for that day. Let's review what we've talked about with our strategies. First of all, we talked about planning for the visit, doing your homework before you go, asking for the diagnosis so that you can be educated about what the disease is. What are some of the things you need to watch for? What behaviors are part of the disease? what do I need to know about its progression, and how do I need to plan for care? The third strategy is report recent and sudden changes and other concerns, even if you think they're insignificant. If they're happening with your loved one, they're significant, and they're important for the physician to know. Any sudden changes requires a medical evaluation. The fourth strategy is talk to the doctor about your role in the partnership and make sure that you're both on the same page with this partnership. The physicians that I've spoken with about this plan have really liked it because they don't get put in the situation where they have to make a snap decision and they really don't have as many of the facts as they need. The fifth strategy, know your resources. You know, we often get a diagnosis and we think we're alone. You're not by yourself. You have the Alzheimer's Association, you have the area agencies on aging, and we can point you to many, many other resources that will help you. We have the sixth strategy of engaging in the partnership, beginning to participate, doing what you're supposed to do, and then making sure you understand what the doctor is saying back to you and his instructions, so that when you are trying to carry this out, you have it very clear. And then restate and agree on your plan. That's more. You know, again, as I said, we've repeated that several times, but it's important that everybody understands their role and that the person with the disease is understanding that they're still a part of that, of this care plan. And then the strategy number 8, schedule your next visit. Take your calendar with you so that you don't have to make 4 phone calls. Care partners don't need additional work. We're trying to simplify this and get the best medical care for your 8 minutes that you receive with your physician. And last but not least, if you have any questions about dementia, call the Alzheimer's Association toll-free number. This will connect you with your chapter in your area, and we can either point you in the right direction or we do have services that we can help you with. Now, I'm going to stop and give you an opportunity to ask questions. And I'm going to turn it back over to Ayn.
Thank you, Mary Ann. That was really terrific. And, you know, I think you really summed it up nicely when you said that you've given folks some tools, some strategies to help simplify things for the caregivers and the team. And I really think that you've done a nice job. Do folks have questions that they'd like to ask?
Just remember to unmute your your lines. If you did so, remember to unmute them.
Hi, Mary. Ellen Knox.
We can barely hear you. If you can speak up, please.
This is Ellen Naw. When will the presentation be available online?
Immediately after the session.
Okay, thank you very much.
If anyone would like to receive the forms that were shown in this presentation, if you would let us know, we can make those available as well.
How do we let you know?
Well, you can call the Alzheimer's Association, or you can call me at 804-967-2582, and I'll be glad to send them to you.
Thanks.
And also, Mary Ann, isn't your email address listed?
I don't think my individual one, because we made this so that all 4 chapters were getting they would know that they could contact all 4 chapters. But if you want to contact me direct, it's Maryann, MARYANN .Johnson @ALZ.org.
Hi, my name is Barbara Etner.
Hello, Barb. How are you?
I have a question of Mary Ann.
Okay.
Are there other people who could conceivably be part of the care partnership? And I'm thinking that there would be a person who would be sort of coordinating all this information, but there are other people often involved in caring for people.
Well, if you've got a family with multiple siblings, usually you want to appoint one person to be the communicator, but all parties should receive the same information so that everybody knows what's happening. We do suggest that. Now, you may have a situation where you have a care manager involved, where someone's being paid to oversee the care. That person, of course, would communicate back to the family. Everybody in a family, and the friends, and the faith community, and the entire community are care partners in this situation. The more direct care partners, however, would be the siblings, a spouse, and maybe a close friend. Those would be your direct care partners. But if you appoint one person to send in the information, then the physician is not going to be as confused about who they're supposed to respond to and have to repeat it a lot. That's what you're trying to prevent. I know in our situation with my mother, when she goes to the physician then sends the notes to all three of us. So we know exactly what happened at the visit, what was the conclusion, what are the instructions, and it's really nice to be able to have that. And if there's been a progression in the disease, that's in the notes as well. And it really does make it nice so that we all three know what's happening and what's been said. We're not relying on one person to repeat it to us. Mm-hmm. Everybody should have a role in this care partner situation. As I said, siblings, we try to get siblings to all see they may not be the primary care partner, but everybody can have a role. And with the spouse, hopefully, if they have children, the children are involved, or if they've had to use a care manager, then that person would be involved too. You just try to have one spokesperson, just to simplify matters. But everyone should be able to put their questions and concerns on the care logs. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, this is Tito. I'm sorry to backtrack, but could you give me your email address again one more time so that I can ask for those sheets?
Oh yes, it's Maryann MARYANN .Johnson @ALZ.org.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Julia Dillon. I wanted to check with Maryann. Maryann, you had mentioned that the chapters have their newsletters. Are those typically available online, or are they still primarily in paper form?
Well, it depends on the chapter. So ours is available online. I'm not sure it's on our website. I'm not sure about the other chapters, but if you check with them, they can probably tell you. I know, Julie, you're with the East Tennessee chapter. I would just call them and ask if they have it online.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, this is Barbara Etner again. I wanted to ask you, doctors are part of the partnership too.
Correct.
And so do they get any training, or do they get the same kinds of sort of pep talks that we're getting about the importance of the partnerships?
Well, no, we're going to leave that up to you to give this pep talk. We'd like to do that, but physicians are pretty busy. But the that I have talked to about this have really liked the idea. And so I think if you take this to your physician and say, I'd really like to start doing this to help you and help me, I think you'll find they will like the partnership. They'll like this idea. If you want the copies of of those forms, then you can show them to the physician. They may want it in a different order. It may help them. I think the biggest concern that we always have is being able to ask the questions you need to ask without doing it in front of the person who has the disease, because it is an agitating thing if they think you're talking about them. So I think that's the biggest concern that we have with this, but the other is that you are making the most of that 8 to 10 minutes that you get with a physician. So, hopefully everybody on this panel will be able to go back to their physician and talk to them about it, take a few minutes and talk to them about it, and I think you'll find that they do like this.
Maryann, that really does echo when we've covered other topics of this nature, what our caregivers say in terms of agitation, that you you really want to make sure that you can provide the information to the medical professionals in a way that is not upsetting to your loved one. So I think this is an excellent way to do it, and you've given people really nice hands-on tools. Because, we frequently say, well, you need to have a care log, but people don't really know what that looks like. So you have really been very specific and descriptive about what that needs to be.
I don't know if my lunch has shown up.
It has been.
We have to thank the National Alzheimer's Association. This is a program that they have trained us in. It has been tweaked a little bit, but the forms actually came from them, so I have to give them credit.
Well, it's terrific that, it is a national effort to get this information out there, and what we can all do is share it. And now that you've shared it with us, we can go out, and I think as all healthcare becomes more consumer-directed, the more tools that we have to do that effectively, the better off we'll all be.
You're right.
I wanted to say one thing about the team. You mentioned the abscess tooth issue, and I see including dental care professionals on the team, to be more and more important as people grow, as indentualism reduces in late life, as people grow older with their teeth, with their dentition intact, which is kind of a new thing, right?
Right.
And so I think that that's a reason to include dental care professionals on the team, but also that overlap with oral health and dementia and that connection that they're both considered in some cases to be inflammatory diseases. Right. I see a lot of overlap and connection there. So I'm glad that you brought that point up and brought it to everybody's attention.
Another partner we probably need to include, too, is the pharmacist.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Pharmacist is, physicians know what diseases are and know how to diagnose them, and they know what medications are supposed to go with diseases. Pharmacists know the drugs, and so don't forget to include your pharmacist in your partnership circle.
And for those of you who are interested, there is an archived webinar about medication-related issues, if you'd like to take a look at that one. Thank you for bringing that up.
And this is Tito again. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually just wanted to recap on something you just said. When you're saying, and this is more of a just for my mental notes. When you're saying that dementia is an inflammatory disease, or I think it's the wording you used, relating to the dental health. I'm not sure. I think I make the connection, but with that being said, are you saying that overcrowding in the mouth could cause dementia-related problems?
I don't think it's overcrowding. I think we're talking more about infections, abscess teeth,
abscess
not
teeth.
taking care of not doing good mouth care.
Abscess teeth meaning I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I don't know the meaning of the abscess teeth. I mean like wisdom teeth, growing teeth inside, teeth growing the wrong direction. I'm not sure.
No, it's more teeth getting a cavity in it that gets down into the bone of the into the nerve of the tooth, and teeth are connected to the bone, and so it can get into the bone of the jawbone.
Oh, okay. Would my mother has Alzheimer's, and she's had two wisdom teeth that have been in her mouth for over almost 10 years now. Mm-hmm. Would that be a concern? I know that no one wants to get the wisdom teeth taken out, and once you've gotten a certain age, if they're there. Is that a concern that I should probably?
Not unless you're giving her problems. I would take her to the dentist. Now, how old is your mom?
She's in her 50s, and I have taken her to the dentist, and they always mention that she has wisdom teeth that probably could and should be taken out, but it doesn't. If she's not complaining, then not to worry about it. But then again, she does complain about it often enough, but sometimes I'm not sure if what she's complaining about is legit or not.
Right. Dino, if you want to call me or email me, and I will respond back to you about that, because we might be able to get someone who could answer your question more specifically, or I might be able to clarify it for you.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Because when you talk about early onset, which is what your mom has,
yeah.
There are a lot of other issues than those who are over 65 and develop dementia diseases. So if you'll call me or just email me.
What's that number again? Because I saw the number, but then the screen changed.
Mine is 804. Where are you located?
I'm actually I go to Fredericksburg all the time, but I live in Richmond. So I mean I go to the Fredericksburg chapter, but I live in Richmond.
All right, call 804-967-2582. That's my number, and I'll talk to you about some of the things that will help you with her, with some of your health issues with her.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Now, that's a very good point, Mary Ann. I know it's not exactly what the topic is, but would you be willing to just say a couple of things about how early onset is different from late life?
I can talk pretty generally about it. Early onset is Alzheimer's disease diagnosed in folks that are under the age of 65. Many of them are in their 50s, their 40s. We've even had some in their 30s. So you can see that the younger population is more susceptible to this. With people with early onset Alzheimer's, it's a different rate of progression than it is with folks that are over 65 that are diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Under 65, there are some other dementia diseases that are also appearing, such as frontal temporal lobe or Pick's disease. So now we're compounding what we're dealing with. But we do know that our numbers are growing rapidly. For somebody under 65 who has Alzheimer's disease, it's going to depend on the person as to how rapidly it progresses. We encourage these folks to keep mentally stimulated and socially stimulated and to make sure they're eating a heart healthy diet. We encourage that with all of them, but especially this group, because what we're finding is that the research is showing is that if we keep these folks mentally stimulated, that sometimes they can manage for a much longer period of time without being dependent, on their care partner. The folks under 65 talk a lot about the disease. They tell you what's happening, whereas over 65 they don't. So to pinpoint what's different, they're all different.
Good point. Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard. I've been saying since I came to work for the Alzheimer's Association, they're not the same. And finally, now researchers are saying, they're not the same. And but it's hard to pinpoint what's different, except that they seem to be more alert and more talkative about what's going on. So you have a better grasp of that. Our numbers under 65 are growing rapidly. As I said, it used to be 0.5% to 1% of the population diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It's now 5 to 10%. That figure is not including those who are developing Pick's disease, or who may have vascular disease, or who may be having memory issues due to head traumas. So our numbers are expanding rapidly in that age group. We do have some services in the Richmond area that we offer for these folks, and so if anyone's interested, again, contact me, and I'll be more than happy to share that information with you. I know that didn't really answer your question, Ann, but it's really hard to...
That's exactly what I was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah. What other questions? Are these forms available on the website, or would we need to call one of the chapters or the 800 number you listed?
Well, actually, they would have to call me because the other chapters don't have them. I took them out of a book and actually put them in this format. We're going to put them on our website. We just talked about that today because we feel like it's such a useful tool. So we're going to try to get them on our website, or at least a link so that they can obtain them. Or as I said, they can call the 800 number if that chapter does not have them. Ask them to transfer them to the Richmond chapter, and I will send, or they can just email me and I'll send them back to them. We're working on that. This sort of came up at the last minute, so I apologize for that.
And what we can do also, perhaps create a link from the Possible website and right under the webinar info, and we can create a link to you so anyone interested can just start from there and still have access to your information.
Okay.
Hi, Mary Ann and Ann. This is Christy Jensen at William & Mary.
Hi,
Hi, Christy.
Marianne, when I did a study a couple of years ago that was actually funded through ARDRIF, in talking to family members about their experiences with physicians, many of them were frustrated or they didn't know when to be satisfied with the diagnosis of dementia or when they should push a little bit more and hear that it was actually vascular related or Alzheimer's or PICS or some of the others that you've mentioned. So I was just curious about when is a dementia diagnosis good enough or is it ever, and when should family members kind of push for something a little bit more specific?
Well, when you get a diagnosis of any kind of dementia disease, there's always that denial that exists that you say, oh, no, not us, that can't be right. And oftentimes I tell people, if you're not satisfied with this physician or you don't feel that the steps were followed, and there are some very specific steps that need to be followed in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, which is diagnosed by exclusion. And so if one step has been missed, then, was it right or was it wrong? What was the diagnosis? And the only thing I have to go by is my mother's case. And in that case, as I said, the only thing they did was the mini-mental state exam. Unfortunately, I had to experience that again with my husband, and that's all they did, was give the mini-mental state exam. And so I really had to push to get the lab work done, to get the other evaluation tools taken care of, such as the medications, and letting them know the family history. They never ask about the family history for either my husband or my mother. They didn't ask about medications that they were on. There was no mention of a neurologist. As I said, there are specific steps. To get a diagnosis for Alzheimer's disease, the physician should get the complete family history, the person's complete medical history, any medications they're on, including over-the-counter drugs, because as I said, there can be medication toxicity. There should be tests for B12, folic acid, and potassium levels. Check their thyroid. They should send them, maybe to a geriatric psychiatrist to screen for depression, a neurologist to look for other physical causes that could be causing the memory issues, and then an MRI or a CAT scan should be done to see if there are any physical changes. And last but not least, either some sort of memory test, such as the mini-mental state exam. I know there's the Wechsler test and there's some others, but something that looks at that. Another thing that's used is the clock drawing test or some sequencing test. And all of those things should be done to eliminate anything that it could be, because in older adults, oftentimes we have things that mimic dementia diseases but are not, and if they're caught and treated early enough, can be maybe not fixed, but at least treated, such as B12 deficiency or potassium deficiency. They can treat that by giving them the potassium. If you don't treat it, then it just gets worse, and then it becomes a permanent thing. So I think going through the steps, and we do have a booklet that we send out that has those steps in there, and making sure the physician has gone through every single step and not left any stone unturned. Now, if a physician has done that and come back and given you a diagnosis, you're pretty sure you've got the correct diagnosis. If they haven't, then you're never sure. So we always tell people, did they go through all these things? Did they do these steps? If not, go back and ask if they mind doing them. And then, because Medicare does pay for a full dementia workup, so there's really no reason to leave out a step.
Right. And I think it's just, we're still seeing, at least in Williamsburg, that the more thorough assessment that you've described is taking place with a neurologist or at a memory assessment clinic and not in the PCP's office. So if we can just, help support the primary care physicians and remind them that Medicare can be billed for this more thorough assessment, hopefully it can be done there, where the older adults more comfortable probably working with that doctor than being referred to somebody new anyway.
Right. What we ended up doing with my mother was actually taking her, after I had sort of hounded the doctor and asked for all these steps to be taken care of, we ended up taking her to a memory support clinic. She looked at the records and said, oh, yeah, I can tell you exactly. And she never did anything because I'd already pestered the doctor to do everything. So it was done because of that. But it is frustrating, and as I said, we all live in that sea of denial. Nobody wants to see this kind of diagnosis come be the result of the problem, and because we don't want to see our loved one go through this. But the fact remains that the people that we see that say, okay, did you go through all the steps? And if all the steps have been followed, and there's no question about it, then accept it and go on, and learn as much as you can about the disease, because there's no cure right now. So we try to encourage people to get to dock on the side out of the sea of denial. And Christy, you bring up a good point about the assessment clinic in Williamsburg. That is available. We do make that known. There are several assessment clinics that are in the Richmond area and in the Fredericksburg area that you can go to. There's the one in Williamsburg, there's one at UVA, there's one at Georgetown, and there's one at Duke.
Right, and then we also refer folks, if they can't get in, the one in Williamsburg is open one day a week. So if they can't get in here, then they can also venture to Norfolk to EVMS.
Right. That was the other one. I knew there was one I was leaving out. So, yeah, we do encourage people, because it is sometimes hard to get those appointments. But if you need something immediately, don't give up.
Is there a list of assessment sites?
There are places that you can go. I beg your pardon?
Is there a list of assessment sites?
We have those at our office. I'll be glad to email them to you.
Okay. Or is that assessment strictly physician referral for the assessments?
Christy,
can
you answer?
Contact the assessment sites directly?
No, at least with Williamsburg, which is a satellite of the Glennon Center at EVMS, you can make a direct contact. So it can be a physician referral, or the family can make a direct contact with the site.
And I know with Duke and UVA it's the same, that you can contact them directly.
And you usually have to count on about 2 hours minimum when you go in for that assessment, and there's a team of folks that you kind of move through as they're gathering their information during that time period.
Okay. I am a court-certified guardian for the elderly, and my involvement in working with the elderly is making my own evaluation and a report to the court on my opinion of their cognitive state. Is it set up in such a way, if I want to do an assessment for these people, that it will be funded through state resources?
Are you asking, is it set up that way?
Yes.
Not to
right now, we don't have any resource other than primary care physicians and my own lay opinion.
Right. And that's hard because the social skills of these folks are still intact. And
that's
so
right.
If you went to see them in the morning, they'd probably be, or if you went to see them at any time, their social skills are there and they will be right on target with everything that they're supposed to say. Whereas if you stayed with them for a longer period of time, you might see the differences. So it's hard to say. There is this, to my knowledge, is not a state fund set up for that particular thing. You are dependent on those physicians to give their opinions and to do the diagnostic workup.
And what I find quite often is that they haven't been to the physician for some time through family and failure to take steps. And that's why the courts are being involved. Right.
Yeah, that happens a lot of times. You know, as we age, we have some normal memory issues. We're not quite as quick as we used to be. I always ask my son. He tells me, no, I don't remember things really well. That's true with all of us. But when we talk about these dementia diseases, we're talking about something that's much, much more significant than just not remembering somebody's name or not recalling an exact event. We're talking about folks who forget to take their medications, who are not able to keep their house in order, whose reasoning ability is damaged, who don't remember what you tell them, their processing ability is damaged, their language skills, they may be hesitant when they're talking, they may forget words, they may change the subject on you. So, and their short-term memory is damaged. So you're talking about some pretty significant things, but and it's pretty amazing when they cover it up. But they can do that. So,
yep.
So we talk between normal aging and who's eccentric and always been that way, and and those who really are having a problem, you're sort of caught in a dilemma in your situation.
Thank you.
I think we're about out of time. Does anybody have one last quick question before we wrap up?
Is there anything else online after this this conversation's over? Is there like another presentation, or is that was that the extent of the program?
We try to do these about monthly, and so there will be another topic next month. And if you are now on our email list, you'll receive the information with the registration for signing up for the next topic. And we also, of course, encourage you to contact us about topics that would be of interest to you, so we're certain that we're providing the information that people need.
And the other thing is contact your local Alzheimer's Association about programs that they're providing in the community, because all of the chapters do provide community programs that you can sign up to attend. So contact your Alzheimer's Association and see what's out there for you. I know, we have some very specific things coming up. If you check our website and you're in the Richmond area, you can participate in those.
Cool, thank you. I'll go to the Judy.
Yes. Judy Shive. Yes.
Yeah, we go to her support meetings. I try to make it every month.
Yes.
I don't get to make it every month, but she's pretty helpful and has information for everybody.
Yes, she is.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to share with us before we wrap up? Maybe we've lost Nico.
No, I'm still here.
You're still here. Oh, good. Do you have anything else to share with us before we close?
No, just that we're going to post everything, including the slides, after the session, and we're going to announce the new session for March at the beginning of the month. And as always, we encourage people to, add more comments or submit their questions via the forum that we have, which is free for all again, and it's accessible at www.alzpossible.org.
Terrific. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Mary Ann, for providing this terrific information, and thank you, Nico, for setting this all up, and I appreciate you all being here in attendance, and I know you'll be sharing this information with your friends and family and colleagues, and I hope we will see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann, and thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank you. Welcome.